welcome back. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very good. I had nothing planned this afternoon, so this is great. And turns out I had this in mind since last year after our first episode because
Oh,
this
really?
this link was saved since like December.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. What's new? What have you been up to?
Let's see. Um, Working a lot, training a lot. Been training
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit lately, and that's it. Just spending time with my family.
I think I saw that you posted you're training 21 hours a week.
About that, yeah.
What are you
Sometimes a
training
little bit
for?
more. Um, yeah, I think, but yeah, usually around 20 hours.
What are you training for?
Well, next year I'm turning 50,
Mm-hmm.
and
Wow.
so I'll have my 50th birthday next year. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to do a couple different things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if these are theoretically possible, but I'll see if I can do them. Um, but one was ride from Seattle to Portland. It's about 200 miles,
Okay.
and I'd like to try to do it entirely fasted. And then the
20,
second,
how many miles did you say?
it's about 200 miles, yeah, and it's about
Fasted.
4,000 feet of vertical.
Wow.
Um, the next thing I'd like to try to do, also fasted, would be to climb Mount Rainier. So yeah, I'm training to do both those things next summer, and I guess it'll just be if I'm ready by that point in time to do those.
So you want to do both of these next summer or one of them?
Both next summer, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
How are you training for these?
So it's a lot of 20 hours seems like a ton of training, and it is on paper, but like
Mm-hmm.
most of this is like really low level movement, and so it's a lot of walking. It's a lot of riding at like really low intensities. So
Okay.
I'm usually riding between 106 to 114 beats per minute. So 114 beats per minute is my fat
Pretty
pattern.
relaxed.
Yeah, it's really relaxed. Um, so that's why I can do so much and still recover.
Right.
Still like lift five times a week with that much cardio in. But really, what I'm trying to do when you train in these lower level zones, you will get a lot of mitochondrial biogenesis. So your body's creating more mitochondria. Those mitochondria are becoming a lot more efficient at burning fat, and but training in the lower zones is what seems to do it. And what happens when you get more mitochondria, when they get more inefficient or more efficient, your heart rate will stay the same, but the amount of watts that you can generate
Right.
will go up. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. It's like a lot of really easy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind
There's
of
just a lot of it.
yeah, just a lot of it.
And so do you plan to do these 200 miles in that intensity as well?
Yeah. So really, what I'd like to be able to do is average about 16 miles an hour. Because then you can complete it in a day without being in the dark too much. and
Oh man, you are blowing my mind.
and the reason why I want to do it fasted is I think it's just such a cool demonstration of what's possible metabolically, even as you age.
I'm a big believer of whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I trust you completely, of course. I mean, I've seen what you've done recently. I've seen what you've done in the last year. Um, this is going to be incredible. You should document it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to document it. And maybe next summer is a little too premature, but maybe
You think so?
it might be. Theoretically, I could do it now.
Like how have you been performing so far?
Great. Like wattage is going up, and I can hold 16 miles an hour on the cycle pretty much indefinitely. But that's not taking into consideration the elevation gain. So
Right, of course.
I think I'll need about probably a 20 to 30% improvement and then I should be able to do it no problem. Or no problem. It's still gonna be really hard, but I should be physically capable of doing it.
In climbing this mountain, how does that look like? How many miles? What's the idea?
So it's about 14,000 feet high. It's a
Okay.
beautiful mountain if you've never seen it. It's like
Mount
Mount
Rainier?
Rainier. Yeah, it is. It's just gorgeous. You can see it from Seattle,
Wow.
and on clear days, people will say, the mountain is out, and
Mm-hmm.
well, it's 14,000 feet. You're pretty much starting
Yeah, this
at
looks big.
yeah, it's pretty big at like 2 or 3,000 feet. So it's a significant amount of vertical gain. You usually do it in you'll go up to 10,000 feet, kind of sleep fitfully until 3 a.m., wake up at 3 a.m., and try to get up and down before the snow starts getting warm.
That's what you want to do?
Yeah, that's what I'll be doing. I climbed,
Fasted.
yeah,
Wow.
fasted as well, just because um, you know I've done uh, Mount Adams before when I was a lot younger.
Mm-hmm.
Or, sorry, Mount Baker, which is another one in the Northwest.
Yeah, I
And,
see it.
but the whole idea of doing that, I obviously didn't do that one fasted,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a little intimidating to think about doing that because you're just burning so much energy.
Is there like a plan, or how are you training to do these things fasted besides like training 21 hours a week?
Yeah, that's basically it. Right now I just need enough time for the adaptations to settle in.
Like you're training fasted as well?
Yeah, I train a lot fasted. hmm And I'll take some L-carnitine, which helps with
Mm-hmm.
fat oxidation, about an hour before, and then just hop on the bike fasted,
Wow.
and and then just go for it.
What are you, how do you have a hydration plan for like for that?
Uh, I should start. Yeah, I've got a
Like
really good.
how does that look like? I know you're not going to be absorbing. I don't know. That's really interesting
Yeah,
because
it's
you want a lot of potassium, of course.
yeah, and I'll try to eat like 5 or 6 grams of potassium every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I've
kind of
read that.
funny because at that heart rate level, it's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. Personally, I'm not sweating very much,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's like 75 degrees or something when I'm training. So um, yeah, it'd be interesting to see under actual conditions because it'll be
Right.
a lot hotter when I'm
No,
when I'm
you're definitely gonna sweat
yeah, I'm gonna
100
sweat.
miles of a bike ride.
Yeah.
Um, wow, that's gonna be wow. What else are you adding to this? Like, is that the main mission right now? Is that like the main goal with your experimentations, personally?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because um you know the other thing that I'm really working on is I have FH or familial hypocholesterolemia. And so part of this as well is just to see what happens to my lipids when I'm doing
Oh,
this
wow.
this much exercise. So I'm going to be testing those pretty soon, but in theory, it should really bring those down quite a bit. So yeah, this kind of kills two birds with one stone. But I've also had this like idea, and it's I've been really getting into looking at what hunter and gatherer societies do, and it's so incredible when you look at them because obviously like a lot of them die from infection, early disease in early life, like 55% um, will die before they're 15. Very, very sad.
15.
Yeah,
Wow.
before they're 15 years old, and most of that's just through infection. But
Yeah.
if you look at the cohorts that live into their 70s, it's incredible. They will have almost um, no sarcopenia. They don't slow down,
Wow.
so they're walking pretty much just as fast. They're more, I'll say, like more or less free of chronic disease, um, uh, meaning like heart disease is almost non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
They have very, very low incidence rates of cancer. But if you look at just like the cardiovascular um, health of these hunter-gatherer tribes, it's like remarkably consistent. They just have very, very low levels, incredible lipid profiles. And a lot of people think that one of the reasons is just the amount of activity that they get.
Right. Right.
So it's kind of, if you think about, living a long time, being functional, I think that looking at these hunter-gatherer societies, provide us with an insight of some things you can do.
Yes,
Um,
of course. Yeah.
if you can get, the benefits of avoiding a lot of the things that could kill you in modern society, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and you can and then quality of life being sarcopenia, joint issues.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find a way to avoid a lot of those, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And then but the thing that's very common, it's almost uncannily common, is they all just move a lot. It's like
Yes.
15,000 steps. It's a lot of low level movement,
Mm-hmm.
and that is going to send a lot of signals for like endothelial health, for processing lipids, really well. But then, I think that you can actually do a little bit better than a lot of these tribes,
100%.
because while they have, pretty decent fat-free mass index, which is kind of like a measure of, how muscular they are, it's like 18. And so they're like pretty slender and thin.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at a lot of the other papers on strength, strength is one of the things that is highly correlated with longevity as well. And it seems to top out at about 22 to 23 FFMI. When you go above that, there are two issues that you can have. One is sleep apnea, because your neck is just getting a little bit too big.
Yeah.
And then the second one is you can have a heart remodeling that can cause some issues when you go a little bit above that. But 23 is still really big for like somebody who's 6 feet tall, like I am. It'd be about 190 pounds at about 10% body fat. So uh, I think I'm pretty close to that right now. For 23, I'm probably around 22, but I'd like to get to basically 23. But
Okay.
if you think about like our modern image of somebody who's carrying around that much muscle, we don't typically think of them as also being able to have incredible endurance,
No.
or to
No.
do things like, do a 200-mile bike ride without any glycogen, which is what most people are going to be burned.
Wow. That's
So I've kind of, given how rare it is, I've kind of given it this name, which is like a hypermorph,
okay.
um, which is, in my mind, somebody that carries around 23 of FFMI, and then just has, incredible endurance.
Right.
And what inspires me about it is, looking at this literature on the hunter-gatherer societies, there should be no reason why it's not possible into like our later years. There should be,
Okay.
theoretically, uh, very little things stopping most people from achieving that, which is kind of wild when you think about it, because if you have that amount of strength and you have that amount of endurance, really it's not too dissimilar from, kind of professional athletes who might be decades younger.
Wow.
So yeah, uh, I don't know if I'll be able to get there. Maybe I'll find some limitations, but I think it's inspiring to me to try
Mm-hmm.
to see if it's possible. And I believe that from what I've read, it should be possible.
How are you doing so? How are you trying?
What's that?
How are you trying? How are you doing so?
Yeah, so it's basically I kind of started experimenting with this like a year ago, um, and it was adding endurance activities to my lifting, and
Mm-hmm.
so I was mostly like focused just on lifting at the time. But with 5 days of training, I found it very difficult to add any kind of like much aerobic activity without getting a lot of fatigue as well, which would then impact my lifting.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found with the low level activity is that doesn't seem to impact my fatigue much, if at all.
Okay.
And so, yeah, really, that was kind of like a key finding for me. Realizing that you might be able to do both, because previously we thought that the rate limiting factor was going to be fatigue, but it seems like I've at least been able to get past that, and it doesn't seem to impact my games at all.
Wow. You're tracking that, of course, right?
Yeah, I'm tracking that, and if anything, it might actually be helping. So I think it's pretty interesting. But yeah, so that was a long answer to your question, but
I love it.
that's kind of like what I'm focused on now.
Might be helping, you think, because of the whole like mitochondrial biogenesis part?
Yeah, it should be, and I've kind of developed, as I've kind of read through this, realizing that metabolic health is is upstream of most disease.
Yeah.
So whether that be cardiovascular, cancer in most cases, in a lot of cases is going to be a result of metabolic dysfunction, and a lot of that is coming from mitochondrial dysfunction. And so I've kind of started to wonder, and this is far from proven theory or anything, but is the way that we're measuring metabolic health, is it giving us the full picture? Because what we typically do today is we'll go in and we will measure fasting glucose,
Yes.
we'll measure fasting insulin, HbA1c, our lipids, and when if those come back and they're low, we kind of stamp, okay, you're good metabolically, you're metabolically healthy. However, it's kind of like, in a lot of ways, you're fasted, you're at rest.
Mm-hmm.
It's not telling us, um, if you use the analogy of a car, um, you know, it's like a car, or like a car with four fuel tanks. We can burn fat, we can burn glycogen or carbohydrates,
Mm-hmm.
we can burn lactate. When your muscles start burning, we used to think that was waste, but your body can actually use it as fuel. And then, the last one is going to be ketones. When you're fasting, when your body senses that those other tanks, the primary tanks like carbohydrate and fat, aren't being refueled,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be like, okay, I'm going to start running off ketones. So, if we have these four tanks, we could think of our metabolism as like the transmission.
Right.
It should be able to, at low level rates, when you're burning fat, it's kind of like a diesel engine, and you can burn fat.
It
And
should be able to use all fuels
yep, you
efficiently.
should be able to use all fuels, and you should be able to shift seamlessly through all these fuels depending on the context. And to me, that's probably a better gauge of metabolic health. It's not just looking at your car at rest and checking oil pressure. It's like, how are you, can you downshift into a corner? And once you downshift into a corner and go around it, can you accelerate into the straights?
And like, how could you measure that, or how could you? Yeah.
So I think there are four, like kind of four measurements, and that you could consider. There might be a little bit more, but the first one would be testing your diesel engine, and that is, how many watts can you produce at low heart rates. Basically, it'll be different for everyone because everyone's going to have like slightly different fat max depending on where they are. But under your fat max, how many watts can you generate for 90 minutes without any cardiac drift? Because if you get cardiac drift, that's an indication that your body is basically trying to shift into glycogen. So I
What
think
do you
that's
mean
how
by
you,
that? Is like sustaining the heart rate, the 90 minutes, right?
yeah, exactly. And like how much power can you produce? Because if you're producing a lot of power at those lower heart rates, really it's just like that's confirmation that you're producing like a lot of ATP. And so
Wow.
your
Okay.
mitochondria can take fat and turn them into oxidize the fat, produce energy from that, and produce like a lot of power. The second one, which would be glycogen, I think we have a pretty good one for that, which would be, and I think that you could probably do different ones, but one could just be VO2 max, like how much oxygen can you consume at max capacity. The third one, like testing lactate, would be how much lactate can you generate and then clear within 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The last one for ketones, there's probably a better way to do this, but I think probably a good rule of thumb would be: can you fast for 20 hours
Right.
and not bonk and feel fine and have good mental clarity? I think those are probably, they may not be the best measures, but I think that they would probably give a better indication of your overall metabolic health in conjunction with those like resting measurements.
Okay. Um, so in these goals that you have for next summer, the idea would be to run on ketones, right? Like
Um,
burn
yeah,
glycogen as much as you can, whatever fat do you have,
yeah. I
right?
think that, like I think that the Seattle Portland is like a really good test of all fuel systems, really,
Wow, yeah, that's
because
right.
for like most of it, ideally you should be burning fat, but you go up a hill and you're going to generate a lot of lactate, and
Mm-hmm.
lactate is kind of like this intermediate fuel that you can use when you go from like glycogen back to fat oxidation. Um, and so, yeah, I should be able to go up a hill, generate a ton of lactate, clear it in 15 minutes, and then just go right back into fat burning mode, without any cardiac drift.
Wow.
And then, probably at some point in time, I may not, I'll probably generate some ketones, but hopefully I'm just staying mostly in fat burning mode for probably like 95% of the ride.
Is like ketone burning mode more stressful?
I'm not sure. It probably is a little bit
Like
because
what I'm trying to say there is like, okay, you have no fat left to what you should have fat left to burn as energy, but now you're shifting to ketones. Won't your body be like scared of that? Does that make sense? It's like, oh wow, we don't have any more energy left.
I what I suspect is that it'll still, if my body is like really good at oxidizing fat, which with my training, like I'd be hard pressed to think that it isn't by that point in time.
Yeah.
It should be. It should be thinking at that point in time, hey, we've got energy output, we've got like plenty of fat to burn, so
Mm-hmm.
we are like very, very good. Um, but there might be a point where it switches over and thinks we're fasting and generates some ketones, but
Right.
I don't think it'll be like a lot.
Have you even thought of this? But like, at what time do you start that 200-mile bike ride?
I'm gonna start as like basically like first light.
First, like,
um,
so are you gonna have a meal before, or you're gonna
uh,
just start
I think what I'm gonna
fasting?
do, I'm just gonna like eat a really good dinner. Uh,
Right.
Probably get like 400 grams of carbs the day before, just so that
Yeah.
glycogen's full,
Hmm.
um, and then I'll just go.
Right. Wow. I'm like very excited for this project.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, you should definitely like for sure document this in a really good way, like beyond Twitter. Does that make
yeah, I
sense?
think I
Like a
will.
YouTube
Do some filming and
series,
stuff
or
like that.
I
Yeah,
don't know. You told me your friend's a videographer, no?
yeah, he is. Yeah, I should
Dude,
talk to him.
hire him to record the whole thing and make a
Yeah, maybe I should.
documentary or something. Yeah. How are you eating right now?
So
with this in mind?
basically, at a very, very high level, um, I'll try to get. So we'll start with protein.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting about 200 grams of protein, but 2 to 210, but about 30 grams of that's collagen. So I'll get probably 70 grams, 60 to 70 grams of protein per meal. I'll have the collagen with it.
With the
So
meal.
yeah, so that's for collagen synthesis, and then making sure that um, have plenty of the right amino acids,
Right.
full spectrum. I'll take 2 to 3 ounces of orange juice with every meal, just for the vitamin C. So it's like 40, 50 milligrams of vitamin C, which is necessary for as a cofactor for the collagen.
Right.
So that's kind of like the protein department. Funny that I included orange juice in there, but it is
Mm-hmm.
part of the protein
Yeah.
strategy. Then moving on to carbs. So it's mostly like uh, my main goal is to try to hit 5 to 6 grams of potassium.
Yes.
So
Per meal, right?
per day. So it's basically
Okay.
like 2 grams per meal, roughly. 1.5 to 2 grams. If I get 1.5, I'm not going to sweat it. So that usually includes having one high potassium thing with the meal, like avocado or banana, and then
Potatoes.
potatoes, yeah, and then like 3 servings of either fruits or vegetables, and then so that's kind of like the carb sources, and then fats will be basically any kind of trace fats from the meat, and then I'll have a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. I've been using like a shout out to Bowtie to Olive. I've been using his olive oil. It's
Mm-hmm.
Olivia Dorado,
Mm-hmm.
because he actually tests it for polyphenols after shipping. So that's pretty unique.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And that's a really big thing because
Mm-hmm.
there can be a lot of polyphenol degradation just in travel. Um, I'll have a tablespoon of that, about 30 grams of pecorino for both calcium and C15. And then
C15. That's
15.
carbon 50, right? Wow.
Yeah, it's pentatonic acid.
I don't know. Pecorino's like, is it significantly high in that?
Yeah, it's one of the highest
Whoa.
things in C15. So you usually find it in either dairy or fish.
It's
But
Pecorino Romano, right? The cheese.
Pecorino Romano, yeah.
C15.
And
I'm
so
gonna.
that's a great one. But C15 is really important for cell stability. And there are a lot of amazing papers on it.
Yeah.
So, but with pecorino, you can cross off two things, which is calcium and then also the C15. So
Mm-hmm.
it's two birds with one stone.
There's more protein in there too. No, a lot of
And
it.
protein, yeah, I like lots of great postbiotics in there from the cheese. And then for the remainder of my fats, I'll have like a handful of sprouted pumpkin seeds for
Mm-hmm.
magnesium, and then about 40 grams of mixed nuts. And I do almonds, walnuts, and macadamia nuts.
Okay.
And then the only other remaining thing, which I probably should have put in the carbs, is I'll have a serving of beans, about a cup of beans. And I do that for a couple different reasons. Um, 3 different reasons, really. It's a lot of them are high in potassium, especially like Great Northern beans or the white beans. The second reason is molybdenum, and so
Mm-hmm.
molybdenum is a trace mineral that is really critical for detox, and specifically detoxing protein. Um, and so that is really critical.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say potassium, molybdenum,
Yes.
and then the last one's fiber? And
Mm-hmm.
so the Great Northern beans have like a tremendous amount of soluble fiber as
Your
well.
fruits.
Yeah, so with like a cup of Great Northern beans, I want to say that you get almost like a gram of potassium. So
Wow.
yeah, so I'll either have those or I'll have like a serving of natto,
Right.
um, which is really high in K2. So if I have that, I'll have it with the pecorino.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's basically what my diet looks like. And beyond that, it's, I'll just have whatever.
Yeah. Is there any like emphasis at all in sodium? Magnesium, I imagine you're supplementing. I'm already assuming.
Yeah, with sodium, I'll find that
Just
basically if
salt
I
food.
just eat that, I'll usually get enough.
Right.
Um, I'll try to get about 2 to 3 grams of sodium, and then the potassium sodium ratio will be either 3 to 1 or 2 to 1. Um,
Okay.
and ancestral levels are thought to be up to like 10 to 1, which is kind of crazy.
Potassium to sodium.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. Um, so what's the goal with this diet, if that makes sense?
Really, it's pretty utilitarian.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really, I mean, it's really just kind of designed to hit all my macros
Hmm.
and all my micros.
Hmm.
Um,
Like I feel like I asked that question because since you're like emphasizing C15, I don't know if you're like interested in like eating that for a certain reason or whatever.
yeah, yeah, almost everything in the diet is like for a certain reason.
Right.
But there are a couple things that are just hard to get from food. Um,
Hmm.
one is K2. K2 can
Hmm.
be really hard to get from food, but the natto is really high in it. And then the other thing that can be hard to get is C15,
Right.
just because it's only in a couple things.
Hmm.
And then also get like a few grams of DHA. So I'm just taking fish oil for the days that I'm not eating salmon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know C15 because Vance Elrod was talking a lot about it
Oh
a
yeah.
while ago. I don't know if he was injecting it or taking it or whatever. I think his repair balm has C15.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably not talked about as much as it should be. It's like
No.
pretty remarkable.
The first times I saw him post papers and everything about it, I was like mind
Yeah,
blown.
it's pretty mind blowing.
Right.
Are
That's why.
you aware of how they found it?
How do they find it?
It's a
I
really cool
think
story.
so.
So it was actually a marine biologist who was working for the United States Navy, and they've kept dolphin pods of dolphins for like 50 years, and they have one pod of dolphins in Florida and another one in San Diego. And these dolphins, like, they love it. They live like almost twice as long as those in the wild.
Okay.
But they were starting to notice that the dolphins in San Diego were starting to get a lot of diseases that were kind of similar to human, like Alzheimer's, high blood
Wow.
pressure, um, fatty liver, and they were trying to
Wow.
figure out like what was going on. And what they found, they ultimately like limited it down to C15. And the reason why that happened is they used to feed these dolphins candlefish, and candlefish they got their name because they're so high in fat that you can literally start them on fire like a candle.
No way.
Yeah.
Let me see.
So
Uh-huh.
they used to feed them the candlefish, which were like incredibly high in C15, and then they were overfished, and they started feeding them different fish, which weren't as high as in C15.
Okay.
And so what happens if you don't if you think of like a 15 carbon chain, it's like a baton basically.
Right.
And so our cells use them to give them structure. And if the cells don't have it enough C15, they don't have enough structure, and they start basically getting killed off.
Wow.
That process is called ferroptosis.
Mhm.
And so we've known about ferroptosis was like kind of a recent discovery. We
Mhm.
maybe found out about it, within the last 15 years or so. because it was a new way that we discovered cells dying. We knew about like, apoptosis and the other ways that cells die, but this is new. And recent research seems to suggest that it's basically due to C15 deficiency. And what they found in the dolphin pods was that when they gave them C15, these diseases started going away.
Wow.
So really, really interesting.
Yeah. Are you dividing like your macros exactly in the 3 meals or 4 meals, or are you eating more carbs in the morning, more fats at night, whatever?
I usually try not to worry about it too
Okay.
much. I figure it'll all come out in the wash. I suppose I'm sure I could optimize in some way that I'm not doing right now,
Oh, you're good.
but usually I've just tried to simplify my mental model a little
Right.
bit,
100%.
so that I don't have to think about it as much. It's just like, I just know the size of protein I need to eat. I know the volume of
Mm-hmm.
vegetables I need to eat. And it makes it simple for me because if I just think about doing those things, I know that I'll get everything that I need.
Any caffeine?
Yeah, I'll have caffeine. I drink some green tea, some half calf coffee, just because I'm a slow caffeine metabolizer. So I just
Okay.
try to have lower amounts. But yeah, I do like the caffeine. I try to train before I have it because what I've noticed
Oh,
is that caffeine will raise my heart rate pretty significantly.
okay.
And so if I have it before training, if I have it before cardio training, it's gonna throw things off a little bit. If I have it, I'll have like a lot before I go strength train.
Supplementations, peptides, anything? I read you took testosterone, I think.
Yeah. So I take 120 milligrams per week, and I started that because what I was noticing was
I
that
read your tweet and it was hilarious that you wanted to
oh
buy a
yeah.
truck. Yeah, that was amazing.
That was so funny. It was so unexpected.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
my testosterone levels were fine during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go into the winter, they'd be like 850 naturally in the summer. But when I went into the winter, they'd be like 300s.
Okay. What do you think?
And so, I tried for a long time to isolate variables and figure out what that was. And I I think that it might have something. I live in Seattle. There's hardly any light during the
Mm-hmm.
winter. I mean, like there's a good part of the year you just can't generate vitamin D.
Right.
Um, and But there is light is needed in some ways for the lighting cells to synthesize testosterone. It's used as a signal. So the best I can tell, and I don't think there've been any studies on this, is that that's just what's happening. Is
Okay.
there's just not enough light. So what this last year I started almost a year ago. Um, and I'd had like really bad seasonal depression during Seattle winters, and this is the first year where like it, winter was great. I loved it. Um, I want to experiment with coming off the summer to see if I could just make it a seasonal thing, and keep natural function and things like that. But yeah, it's been great being on. I love being on testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably arguably it might be better for my amount of training right now, just knowing I have
Of
stable
course.
levels. Um, but yeah, it seems to be. I don't know why it seems to be such a contentious topic. Like,
What do you mean contentious? Like
it can be like pretty
touchy?
polarizing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like if you tell people you're taking exogenous testosterone,
It's
they'll
so stupid.
use you as steroids, or
Yeah.
which I mean is technically accurate.
Yeah.
It is a steroid, but you're not doing steroids at the dose that like a bodybuilder would do.
What else have you noticed by taking testosterone right now? 120 milligrams a week. Is that like a significant amount? I don't know.
No, it's a pretty low amount.
Okay.
It's certainly like in the therapeutic range. I'll
Okay.
see what my testosterone comes back at, but it should probably put me around 800 or so.
Are you focused on DHT at all before you answer that question? Sorry, it just came up.
Um, I'm really interested. I would love to see what it is at some point in time.
Okay.
Yeah, and just I'll probably throw it in my next set of labs just
Mm-hmm.
to see what it's doing. But let's see, beyond that, I've been taking nattokinase. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll take like,
Yeah, you were the first person I read it about.
oh really?
Heard it from, yeah.
Yeah. That is like a pretty remarkable. There's a lot of research on it. I wish there was more, but
Mm-hmm.
I take that mostly because it's like an anti-fibrin,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's probably the biggest reason, why I take it, is just to eliminate, fibrin. There's actually one study that was really fascinating, and it was more effective than a statin at
Right.
uh, at like clearing carotid artery plaque, which I thought was like really fascinating. But that, I'm sure that's from the anti-fibrogen
Mm-hmm.
properties. I'll take. I am taking a statin, so I'll take 10 milligrams of rosuvastatin, which is like a pretty low dose. I just started taking in the fall, and I'm going to see what my levels here are next week. But that's mostly just for ApoB reduction, and just,
Okay.
I have family history there. And then 2.5 milligrams of tadalafil. So
With your workout?
yeah,
Or
I usually like time it before my workout, and so that uh, also known as like Cialis, and so traditionally it's been used as like an erectile dysfunction medication, but I'm taking it like off-label for endothelial health,
mm-hmm.
and so
Wow.
um, the way that the way that it works is as we get older. So there's something called CGMP, and CGMP will basically signal your smooth muscle cells to vasodilate. But as we get older, we produce less and less CGMP, and so we're not able to, dilate our blood vessels as much. So tadalafil is a PDE5 inhibitor,
Right.
and PDE5 is basically the thing that breaks down CGMP. And so
Mm-hmm.
by inhibiting that, you get more CGMP, and your blood vessels dilate more. And as a result, that's why I think that you see like a lot of these downstream effects. Like people will have like lower levels of inflammation,
Mm-hmm.
as an example. And I don't think that that's a direct effect of it. What I think is happening is just by having better vasodilation, you'll have better endothelial health, and like lower inflammation. So yeah, I take that. Just 2.5 milligrams is like a really low dose. You'll see a lot of guys on X who, take like 20 milligrams before working out.
There's guys on X doing like from A to Z. Yeah.
There is, yeah.
Wow.
But I think most guys on X would consider that like a really low dose, and possibly in the range of like not doing anything.
Okay.
And then I'll take a K2 supplement some days. I have like a whole cabinet of supplements. So if I'm like low on anything nutritional, I'll top things up.
Yeah.
And then that's really kind of the whole stack.
I'm curious.
I'll inject 500 milligrams of L-carnitine every day, and that's just for better beta oxidation, better
Yeah.
fat breakdown.
I've been wanting to try L-carnitine for a while.
Oh, it's great.
I mean, I've tried it with a monster, but that doesn't even count. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Um, it's great. It's one of my favorites actually. It's like very subtle, but very, very like effective.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your magnesium intake.
Yeah, I shoot for like 400, 500 milligrams um,
Oh wow.
per day, and I mostly get it through food,
Wow. Okay.
almost entirely through food. I do have like, loads of magnesium
Yeah,
supplements
I
pretty much in
imagine.
every room, so I'm never, really short on it. And then the last one, I'm sorry, I forgot one, is like vitamin D, and so
Vitamin
I'll
D.
take that. Just because I'm in Seattle and really, really hard to get.
Mm-hmm. Have you thought of any stack or adding anything to this for these goals you have for the next summer?
I'm just trying to keep things as simple as I can, and I might, I'm gonna have some more blood work done next week, and if anything's looking off, I'll do that. I'll make some adjustments as needed. But beyond that, I'm really just trying to I'm really trying to have the supplement be my body's adaptations.
Wow, I love that. Yeah.
Um, and so really, I kind of see my supplements as much movement as I can get, and as much strength training as I can get, as much recovery as I can get, and am I closing all my nutritional gaps? I think that is like, gosh,
Fundamentals, yeah.
you can just go so far with just those things.
Right.
If you're like getting your macros right, getting your micros right, trying to get as much of your nutrition as you can from food. Of course, there's nothing wrong with supplementing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also hard to replace what we get from nature,
Mm-hmm.
because typically the things, you have the cofactors. I'll give you like one example. So almost in nature, like almost anything that's high in omega-6 is also going to be high in vitamin E.
Vitamin E.
Yeah. And so it's just like nature's just done such a great job. The reason why that's important is, and I'm not telling you this because I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you know, but just explaining for people listening, is omega-6 is going to be, it's a necessary fat, but it's also like kind of unstable. It's prone to peroxidation. And what peroxidation is, if you imagine your cells like a whole bunch of balloons that have been kind of pressed together. So it has this lipid layer where things can get in and out, but it's still like a barrier. Well, when it peroxidizes, what ends up happening is that balloon pops, but it can cause this chain reaction, almost like lighting off a package of fireworks, and where all the balloons start popping. What vitamin D will do is it'll interrupt that peroxidation process. And so it's kind of cool that nature will just package the
Yeah.
things, cofactors that we need.
And there's so many other like examples too. Basically for everything, no?
Oh,
Like,
pretty much everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
incredible.
I read this post about apples one time, and about like all the cofactors that are in apples,
Wow.
that kind of make things work together.
It's also like
Right.
orange juice and oranges, right?
Yeah,
The vitamin
yeah,
C, the
exactly.
sugar, all of it works together.
All works together. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to improve on nature and
Right, I
what
love
nature
that.
gave us. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's not to say that you shouldn't supplement. Yeah, it's we all have different genetics. Sometimes we can't get what we need from food,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, if you can't get it, then supplementing is a good option.
Is there something else you're doing besides sleep to prioritize recovery?
It's mostly just sleep,
Okay.
and what I've kind of found is that um, the the more activity I get in, like the better I sleep.
Of course. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard, and this is an experiment for anyone listening. If you're having trouble sleeping,
Just walk
try
more.
this experiment. Just walk.
Yeah.
Go try one day where you get like 15 to 20,000 steps in the sun, and then
Mm-hmm.
just see if you have problems sleeping. Chances are like you will sleep like a baby.
100%. Yeah, I think that's been that removed my insomnia from the past 3 months. It's just
Oh,
walking
did it?
more. Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
insane.
Yeah, it just
Um,
works so well.
yeah, you just want to sleep more.
You just want to sleep. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically, if you walk a ton during the day, by the time the sun sets, you're like ready to crash.
yeah.
Yeah.
Greg, I have nothing else for you. I had different questions, but they were all kind of answered in this conversation about the bike ride and the Mount. What's it
Not
called?
right here.
Mount Rainier.
Yeah.
So, is there something else you want to add?
Oh gosh, not that I can think of.
No.
No.
Where can folks find Greg?
Um, I'm usually on X, so you can find
Yes.
me at my handle is just my name at Greg Mushen,
Hmm.
and I post a lot there, so that's probably the best place to find me.
I'm excited to see your adventure next year, and hopefully we can make a in-person podcast after both events.
Oh yeah, I'd love that.
That would be amazing.
Are you planning a
Yeah.
trip? Yeah, if you do, let's do it.
I mean, I'm not planning a trip, but I know that with Revivo, I do want to fly everywhere.
Awesome. Very
So
cool.
probably see you. Yeah,
Very cool. Well, I'd love to get together if you're ever here.
100%. And
Come during the summer.
I think you should come. Yeah, exactly. I think you should come to Mexico City soon. There's a
Oh,
lot
I
of
love
sun.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, last time I was there, I was 16 years old. I'm
right. You told me.
sure it's changed a lot since then, but I
Yeah,
loved it when I was there. It was
winters are kind of fake here.
what is that?
Winters are kind of fake here. There's a
Oh
lot of
yeah, I
UV.
bet.
Yeah,
I bet. But gosh,
the
I'm just so inspired to see everything come out of Mexico, like the food scene there and
yeah.
like the design. It's just so cool. Everyone I
Yep.
know who's been there just loves it.
Well, I'm waiting for you, Greg.
We'll have to make that happen.
Yes, perfect, Greg. Thank you so much
Yeah, thank you.
for today. This was really good, really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.